Ever wonder what happens to all that money when stars leave us? Did you know some celebrities are worth more after death than during their lifetime? Number 10. Marilyn Monroe. Have you ever thought about how Marilyn Monroe's iconic status translated into dollars and cents after her tragic death? When the blonde bombshell died in 1962 at just 36 years old, few could have predicted the financial empire her legacy would become. Monroe's estate was initially modest by today's celebrity standards. At the time of her death, her assets were valued at around $800,000, which would be about $7 million in today's money. But here's where things get interesting. Marilyn's foresight in her will created one of the most lucrative posthumous careers in Hollywood history. Before her death, Monroe left 75% of her intellectual property rights to her acting coach Lee Strasberg, with the remaining 25% to her therapist Dr. Marion Crease. When Strasberg died in 1982, his share passed to his third wife Anna, who never even met Monroe. Anna Strasberg turned Marilyn's image into a gold mine, partnering with CMG Worldwide to license Monroe's name and likeness for thousands of products. By the time Anna Strasberg sold her stake in Monroe's estate in 2011 to Authentic Brands Group, the deal was reportedly worth $20 to $30 million. Today, Monroe's estate generates around $8 to $10 million annually, landing her consistently on Forbes' list of highest-earning deceased celebrities. What makes Monroe's case particularly fascinating is how her cultural relevance has never dimmed. Her image appears on everything from T-shirts to wine bottles, proving that some stars shine even brighter after they're gone. The complex legal battles over her estate have spanned decades, involving everyone from photographers who claimed ownership of her image to distant relatives challenging the will. Monroe's estate represents a turning point in celebrity asset management. Before her, few stars considered the long-term value of their image rights. After her, it became standard practice for celebrities to protect their likeness as a valuable asset that continues generating revenue long after death. Number 9. Prince. Did you know Prince died without a will? When the musical genius passed away unexpectedly in 2016 at his Paisley Park compound, he left behind not just a vault of unreleased music but also a legal nightmare that has cost millions to sort through. Prince's estate was initially valued at around $200 million, though some estimates put it closer to $300 million. Without a will in place, Minnesota law dictated that his estate would be divided among his closest relatives, his sister Tyka Nelson and 5 half-siblings. But that straightforward division quickly became complicated. The absence of clear instructions left the estate vulnerable to hundreds of claims from people alleging to be relatives, business partners, or creditors. The estate administrators, Comerica Bank and Trust, had to spend millions just sorting through these claims, many of which were ultimately rejected by the courts. Then there were the tax issues. The IRS initially valued the estate at $163,200,000 and claimed Prince's representatives had undervalued it by 50%, seeking an additional $32,400,000 in taxes plus a $6,400,000 accuracy-related penalty. After years of legal battles, in 2022, the estate reached a settlement with the IRS, valuing the estate at $156,400,000. The probate process for Prince's estate became one of the longest and most expensive in Minnesota history. Legal and accounting fees are estimated to have exceeded $50 million, money that would otherwise have gone to his heirs. The process took 6 years to complete, with the final distribution plan approved in 2022. Prince's musical catalog represents the crown jewel of his estate. Rights to his songs are particularly valuable because, unlike many artists, Prince maintained ownership of his master recordings and publishing rights throughout his career. In 2021, his estate reached a deal with Sony Music Publishing to administer his catalog, though the financial terms weren't disclosed. The legendary vault of unreleased Prince material has also begun generating revenue. Since his death, several posthumous albums have been released, including Piano and a Microphone 1983 and the expanded reissue of Sign O' the Times. These releases have generated millions in additional revenue for the estate. Prince's Paisley Park complex in Chanhassen, Minnesota, has been converted into a museum, attracting thousands of fans annually and generating steady income for the estate. Admission prices range from $45 to $160 for VIP tour. The Purple One's complex estate settlement serves as a cautionary tale about the importance of estate planning, even for those who might feel uncomfortable contemplating their mortality. Number 8. Whitney Houston. How does a voice worth millions get valued after it falls silent? When Whitney Houston died in 2012, her financial situation was complicated. She was simultaneously wealthy in assets but facing cash flow problems. Houston's estate was initially estimated at around $20 million, but that only tells part of the story. After her death, album sales soared by 3,400%, with Greatest Hits climbing to number 2 on the Billboard 200 and I Will Always Love You entering the charts. Her estate has since generated substantial posthumous income through royalties, licensing deals, and new projects. The primary beneficiary of Houston's estate was her daughter, Bobbi Kristina Brown. However, the inheritance was structured through a trust with 10% available to Bobbi Kristina when she turned 21, another 15% at age 25, and the remaining balance at 30. Tragically, Bobbi Kristina died in 2015 at age 22, never receiving the bulk of her inheritance. After Bobbi Kristina's death, the estate became even more complex. Her father, Bobby Brown, was potentially in line to inherit as Whitney's ex-husband, but legal experts determined that Houston's will had effectively excluded him. Instead, the estate passed to Houston's mother, Cissy Houston, and her 2 brothers. The Houston estate has been particularly active in developing new projects. In 2018, they approved a documentary, Whitney, directed by Kevin MacDonald. In 2019, they announced plans for a hologram tour, new music, and a potential Broadway musical. In 2020, Whitney was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, further cementing her legacy and commercial appeal. One of the most significant developments for Houston's estate was the $7 million sale of half of her assets to Primary Wave Music Publishing in 2019. The deal included a portion of her music and film royalties, merchandising, and the right to use her name and likeness. Primary Wave has specialized in managing legacy artist catalogs and has helped revitalize interest in Houston's work. Like many celebrity estates, Houston's has faced its share of controversies. The estate has had to make difficult decisions about releasing previously unheard music and authorizing projects that Houston herself might not have approved. These ethical considerations often complicate the management of celebrity estates beyond mere financial calculations. Number 7. Bob Marley. Would you believe Bob Marley died without a will because his Rastafarian faith discouraged planning for death? When the reggae legend died in 1981 at just 36, he left behind an estimated $30 million estate and what would become one of the most contentious celebrity estate battles in history. Under Jamaican law, without a will, 10% of Marley's assets would go to his widow Rita Marley, with the remaining 90% divided equally among all his children. The problem? Marley had 11 children with 7 different women, and determining legitimate claims became a legal nightmare. The immediate aftermath of Marley's death saw a feeding frenzy of competing claims, fraudulent documents, and outright theft. Some business associates allegedly forged documents to gain control of his assets, while others simply took what they could before legal proceedings began. The situation was so complex that the full settlement of Marley's estate took over 30 years. During this time, his posthumous career flourished, with his Legend compilation becoming the best-selling reggae album of all time with over 25 million copies sold worldwide. In 2001, the Marley family reached a crucial agreement to form 56 Hope Road Music Limited, named after Bob's home address in Kingston, This entity, controlled by Rita and the children, manages the rights to Marley's name, likeness, and music. This consolidation of control marked a turning point in the estate's management. The Marley Estate has been particularly savvy about brand expansions, launching House of Marley eco-friendly audio products, Marley Coffee, Marley Beverages, and numerous clothing lines. These ventures have transformed the estate from simply collecting royalties to actively building a global brand empire. In 2018, Marley's estate ranked 5th on Forbes' list of highest-earning dead celebrities, bringing in $23 million. This remarkable financial achievement came nearly 4 decades after his death, demonstrating the enduring commercial appeal of his music and message. The estate hasn't been without controversy, though. It has aggressively protected Marley's intellectual property, filing numerous lawsuits against unauthorized merchandise and usage of his image. Some critics have questioned whether this commercialization aligns with Marley's own anti-materialistic values and Rastafarian beliefs. Despite these tensions, the Marley Estate has funded substantial philanthropic work through the Bob Marley Foundation, focusing on education, healthcare, and sustainable development in Jamaica and Ethiopia, reflecting Marley's own commitments to social justice. Number 6. Elvis Presley. Did you know Elvis was almost broke when he died? How did the king of rock and roll's estate become a billion-dollar enterprise after his death? When Elvis Presley died in 1977, his finances were in surprisingly poor shape. Years of extravagant spending, generous gift-giving, and mismanagement had depleted his fortune to around $5 million. Graceland was costing over $500,000 annually to maintain, and there were significant outstanding tax obligations. Elvis will named his father Vernon as executor, his grandmother Minnie Mee Presley, and his daughter Lisa Marie Presley as beneficiaries. After Vernon died in 1979, the responsibility fell to Lisa Marie, who was only 11 at the time. Until she came of age, the estate was managed by executors, including Elvis' former accountant Joseph Hanks. The turning point for the estate came when Priscilla Presley, Elvis' ex-wife and Lisa Marie's mother, took control as one of the executors. Facing potential financial collapse, she made the bold decision to open Graceland to the public in 1982. This single move transformed Elvis' financial legacy, with Graceland quickly becoming one of America's most visited private homes, attracting over 600,000 visitors annually. In 1993, when Lisa Marie turned 25, she inherited the estate fully, now valued at over $100 million thanks to Priscilla's management. Lisa Marie then formed Elvis Presley Enterprises, EPE, to manage the growing business empire. In 2005, Lisa Marie sold 85% of EPE's assets to CKX, Inc. for approximately $100 million, though she retained ownership of Graceland itself and many of Elvis' personal effects. The Elvis estate now generates an estimated $40 to $50 million annually through various revenue streams. Graceland tickets and merchandise alone bring in around $10 million yearly. The estate has been particularly successful with licensing Elvis' image and music for films, commercials, and new media interpretations. In recent years, technological innovations have created new opportunities for the estate. In 2022, Baz Luhrmann's Elvis biopic renewed interest in Presley's life and music, while hologram concerts and virtual reality experiences have introduced the king to younger audiences who never saw him perform live. However, the estate has faced its share of challenges. After Lisa Marie's unexpected death in January 2023 at age 54, questions arose about the inheritance structure for her children. Her daughter Riley Keough became the sole trustee of the estate following a settlement with Priscilla Presley, who had contested an amendment to Lisa Marie's will. The evolution of Elvis' estate from near bankruptcy to a billion-dollar enterprise represents one of the most remarkable posthumous business success stories in entertainment history. It also established the template that many celebrity estates have since followed. Number 5. John Lennon. How does a peace activist's legacy become entangled in decades of legal battles? When John Lennon was tragically gunned down outside the Dakota apartment building in 1980, he left behind an estate valued at approximately $200 million, equivalent to around $800 million in today's currency. Lennon's estate planning was relatively straightforward compared to some other celebrities. His will left nearly everything to his wife Yoko Ono and their son Sean, with nothing initially allocated to Julian Lennon, his son from his first marriage to Cynthia Lennon. This omission became a source of contention, with Julian later suing and receiving a settlement reported to be around $28 million. The bulk of Lennon's wealth came from his Beatles catalog and his solo work. While alive, Lennon and McCartney had sold their publishing rights to ATV Music for $5,300,000, a catalog that ironically would later be purchased by Michael Jackson for $47,500,000 in 1985, showing the dramatic appreciation in music rights values. Yoko Ono has been a fierce guardian of Lennon's legacy, carefully controlling the use of his image and music. Under her management, the estate has authorized select projects that maintain Lennon's artistic and political legacy, including the Imagine Peace Tower in Iceland and numerous charitable initiatives focused on peace and hunger relief. The estate generates significant revenue through continuing music sales, with interest in the Beatles remaining strong decades after their breakup. The introduction of the band's catalog to streaming services in 2015 created a new revenue stream, while remasters and special editions consistently sell well to both longtime fans and new generations of listeners. Part of the Lennon estate's complexity stems from the intertwining of his Beatles rights with the other band members. Various legal agreements govern how Beatles music and merchandise can be used, requiring consensus among the surviving Beatles, Lennon's estate, and the estate of George Harrison before major decisions can be made. Lennon's New York real estate holdings have appreciated tremendously since his death. The apartment in the Dakota where he lived with Yoko and outside which he was killed was purchased for $250,000 in 1973. Similar units in the building now sell for over $10 million. Ono still maintains residence there. In 2020, on what would have been Lennon's 80th birthday, the estate released Gimme Some Truth, the ultimate mixes, a collection of remixed and remastered songs that reached number 3 on the UK albums chart, demonstrating the continuing commercial viability of Lennon's work. The estate continues to balance commercial interests with maintaining Lennon's artistic and political legacy. In recent years, they've embraced new technologies, authorizing digital-only releases and allowing Lennon's music to be used in carefully selected film and television projects that align with his values. Number 4. Michael Jackson. Can you die $500 million in debt and still become a billionaire posthumously? When Michael Jackson died unexpectedly in 2009, the king of pop was in dire financial straits, with debts reportedly between $400 to $500 million despite his enormous earnings throughout his career. Jackson's spending habits were legendary. He purchased the 2,700-acre Neverland Ranch for $17 million in 1988 and spent millions more converting it into an amusement park complete with a zoo, cinema, and carnival rides. The property cost an estimated $10 million annually to maintain. Add to this his notorious shopping sprees, where he would sometimes spend millions in a single day on antiques and art. At the time of his death, Jackson was preparing for his This Is It concert series at London's O2 Arena, which was partially motivated by his need to address his financial troubles. The 50 planned shows had sold out, representing a potential turning point in his finances. After Jackson's death, his estate executed one of the most remarkable financial turnarounds in celebrity history. Within just 1 year, the estate had generated over $1 billion in revenue through music sales. The This Is It documentary film, which grossed $261 million worldwide, and various merchandising deals. A key asset in Jackson's estate was his music catalog, particularly his ownership stake in Sony ATV Music Publishing, which included the rights to most of the Beatles' songs. Jackson had purchased this catalog for $47,500,000 in 1985. In 2016, his estate sold these rights back to Sony for $750 million, using much of the proceeds to retire the star's remaining debts. Jackson also owned Mijak Music, which controls the rights to his own songs and those of other artists like Ray Charles and Elvis Presley. This catalog has been valued at over $100 million and continues to generate substantial annual revenue for the estate. The estate's executors, attorney John Branca and music executive John McClain, have been credited with the masterful management of Jackson's posthumous career. Under their guidance, the estate has launched successful projects including the Cirque du Soleil show Michael Jackson 1 in Las Vegas, which continues to sell out performances. Since his death, Jackson has consistently ranked among the highest-earning deceased celebrities. In 2016, Forbes reported that Jackson had earned more in the previous year than any living celebrity. In 2020, Jackson's estate brought in $48 million, ranking him first on Forbes' list of highest-paid dead celebrities for the 8th consecutive year. The estate hasn't been without controversies, however. The 2019 documentary Leaving Neverland, which featured allegations of child sexual abuse against Jackson, created both public relations challenges and potential financial implications for the estate. Despite this, Jackson's commercial appeal has remained surprisingly resilient. The future of Jackson's estate includes new projects like the biographical musical MJ on Broadway, which opened in 2022 to strong ticket sales despite pandemic conditions. A biopic titled Michael is also in development, with the estate's full cooperation. Number 3. Albert Einstein. How does a physicist's brain become part of a multi-million-dollar estate battle? When Albert Einstein died in 1955, he left behind more than just revolutionary scientific theories. He created one of the most valuable intellectual property portfolios in history. Einstein's final will was relatively simple. He left his papers and literary estate to the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, which he had helped found. His personal items and remaining money went to his stepdaughter Margaret and secretary Helen Dukas. What Einstein couldn't have anticipated was how valuable his name and image would become in the commercial marketplace. The Hebrew University has controlled Einstein's intellectual property rights since his death, including his famous equation E equals mc2, his distinctive appearance, and even the rights to his name. This ownership has generated millions in licensing fees from companies wanting to associate themselves with Einstein's genius. In an unusual twist to Einstein's estate story, the pathologist who performed his autopsy, Thomas Harvey, removed Einstein's brain without proper authorization and kept it for decades, giving samples to various researchers. This created unique legal questions about the ownership of physical remains versus intellectual property. Einstein's likeness is now one of the most commercially valuable of any historical figure. His image appears on everything from Apple's Think Different campaign to Baby Einstein products. The estate actively licenses his name and image, generating an estimated $10 to $20 million annually from these deals. One particularly lucrative arrangement is the Baby Einstein product line, which Disney purchased in 2001 for an undisclosed amount. Although controversial for its educational claims, the brand has generated hundreds of millions in revenue, with the Einstein estate receiving royalties from the use of the name. The Hebrew University has been an aggressive defender of Einstein's intellectual property. In 2012, they sued General Motors for using Einstein's image in a terrain SUV advertisement without permission, though they ultimately lost when the court ruled that Einstein's publicity rights had expired in California. What makes Einstein's case unique is that he never sought to commercialize his image while alive. The scientist was known for his modest lifestyle and lack of interest in material wealth. The extensive commercial use of his image represents exactly the kind of celebrity he avoided during his lifetime. In recent years, digital technology has created new opportunities for the Einstein estate. His digital likeness has appeared in commercials through CGI, and there have been discussions about creating an AI version of Einstein that could interact with users, raising new questions about the limits of posthumous personality rights. Unlike many celebrity estates, Einstein's continues to grow in value as his scientific contributions remain relevant and his iconic status becomes more entrenched with each passing decade. His distinctive appearance, the wild hair, mustache, and kind eyes, has become the universal shorthand for genius in popular culture. Number 2. J.R.R. Tolkien. Did you know the author of The Hobbit nearly sold his rights for a pittance? When J.R.R. Tolkien died in 1973, the true value of his literary creations was not yet apparent, with the estate initially valued at a modest £145,000, equivalent to about £1.5 million or $2 million today. Tolkien, a humble Oxford professor, had no idea his fantasy works would become a multi-billion-dollar industry. During his lifetime, he sold the film rights to The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings to United Artists in 1969 for just £100,000. This decision would later require complex legal negotiations when Peter Jackson's films were produced decades later. The Tolkien Estate, managed primarily by the author's son Christopher Tolkien until his death in 2020, has been exceptionally protective of J.R.R.'s literary legacy. Christopher dedicated much of his life to editing and publishing his father's unfinished works, including The Silmarillion, which was published posthumously in 1977. The estate's value exploded after Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings trilogy grossed nearly $3 billion at the global box office between 2001 and 2003. The subsequent Hobbit trilogy added another $2.9 billion. However, due to the earlier rights sale, the estate received no percentage of the box office takings, leading to legal disputes. In 2008, the estate filed a lawsuit against New Line Cinema, claiming they were owed £100 million in unpaid royalties from the Lord of the Rings films. The case was settled out of court for an undisclosed amount, rumored to be in the tens of millions. A major turning point for the estate's finances came in 2017 when they sold the television rights to Amazon for a reported $250 million. This deal led to the production of the Rings of Power series, with a first-season budget of around $465 million, making it the most expensive television series ever produced. The estate continues to earn substantial income from book sales, with Tolkien's works having sold over 600 million copies worldwide. The Lord of the Rings alone sells an estimated 3 to 4 million copies annually, generating consistent royalty income. Merchandise represents another significant revenue stream. Everything from video games to collectible figurines, clothing, and jewelry based on Middle-earth generates hundreds of millions in retail sales annually, with the estate receiving licensing fees. The management of Tolkien's legacy has often involved balancing commercial interests with literary integrity. Christopher Tolkien, in particular, was critical of the commercialization of his father's work, once stating that Jackson's films eviscerated the books in pursuit of action sequences. The future of the estate remains in the hands of Tolkien's descendants and the Tolkien Trust, a charitable organization that receives a portion of the proceeds. With the Amazon series and upcoming films, including an animated feature, The Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim, scheduled for 2024, the commercial potential of Tolkien's imaginative world shows no signs of diminishing. Number 1. Pablo Picasso. Ever wondered what happens when an artist dies without a will after creating over 45,000 works? When Pablo Picasso died in 1973 at age 91, he left behind not only an artistic legacy, but also what art experts have called the most valuable art collection ever possessed by a single individual. The Spanish master's estate included approximately 45,000 works, paintings, prints, drawings, sculptures, ceramics, and tapestries, plus 2 chateaux, 3 houses, and millions in gold and cash. The total value was initially estimated at $250 million in 1973, equivalent to about $1.5 billion today, but has since appreciated to many times that amount. Picasso died intestate, without a will, creating an inheritance nightmare for his heirs. Under French law, his estate was to be divided among his widow Jacqueline Roch, his 3 illegitimate children, Claude, Paloma, and Maya, his grandson Bernard Ruiz Picasso, and his nephew Javier Volato. The settlement process was extraordinarily complex. It took 6 years and cost an estimated $30 million in taxes and legal fees to resolve. The French government accepted 203 works as payment for estate taxes, forming the core collection of the Musée Picasso in Paris. Each heir received a proportional share of every category of assets, paintings from different periods, sculpture, ceramics, etc. This meant dividing the works not just by number but by significance and value, requiring extensive expert appraisals and negotiations. The droit de suite, or artist's resale right in French law, added another layer of complexity. This law entitles artists and their heirs to receive a percentage of the sale price when their works are resold, giving the Picasso heirs an ongoing financial interest in the art market's valuation of his work. Since his death, Picasso has consistently remained among the most commercially valuable artists in history. In 2021, his 1932 painting Femme Assise Prise d'une Fenêtre Marie-Thérèse sold for $103,400,000 at Christie's. His 1955 painting Les Femmes d'Alger version O sold for $179,400,000 in 2015, at the time a world record for any artwork sold at auction. The Picasso administration, managed primarily by his son Claude, continues to authenticate works and approve merchandise licensing. The commercial exploitation of Picasso's name extends to everything from luxury watches to cars, Citroen's Xara Picasso, generating millions in licensing revenue annually. The authentication of previously unknown Picasso works has become a significant issue for the estate. With works potentially worth millions, there's tremendous financial incentive for forgeries, requiring the estate to maintain rigorous authentication standards and occasionally engage in legal battles over disputed works. The Picasso heirs have occasionally clashed over the management of his legacy, with different visions of how the artist's work should be presented and commercialized. These family dynamics add a personal dimension to what is fundamentally a business operation, managing one of the most valuable intellectual property portfolios in the art world. Have you ever considered that the true value of artistic genius might only be fully realized after death? What might these celebrity estates be worth in another 50 years?